Could you take us back to the beginning? How did you discover your passion for storytelling and the arts?
Absolutely. Well, it's something I've always been fascinated with growing up, and I think a lot of that comes from perhaps being an immigrant, and you're kind of told two different stories almost. The one of how your parents grow up and the way they see the world, and then you go to school and you're taught a different way of seeing the world. So I think that got me really curious about people and stories and watching movies and TV and trying to see how people live in general and like why we do the things we do and why we have these rules and perspectives about how we should live our lives. And um, it it got me really interested in just learning about humans, I guess. Um, my parents are very conservative. Well, they were. They're much more chill now. So growing up, they didn't want me to pursue something like acting or entertainment because it can be very unstable, and they wanted me to have stability. That was their main goal for me and for them as well. So I went to college, I got my degree, and then I saved up money and I moved to New York City for about 8 months. I took some acting classes there, and then I moved to Toronto, took more acting classes, and I realized it's something I love doing. I never really felt like homework in the sense that like school felt like homework, like an obligation. This was something I seeked out for myself.
Great answer. In addition to the work that you've done on screen, you've also written and directed. How have your experiences behind the camera impacted the way that you approach your work as an actor and vice versa?
Absolutely. Wow, you've done your research. um, yeah, I write as well, and I think it was last summer I actually got the courage to shoot something that I've written and directed it and produced it, and it was an amazing experience. It really changed for me storytelling in a way because I am learning all these elements that I just wouldn't need to even think about as an actor, like music, coloring, editing, like shot angles and all of that stuff. And I think in turn, it's also benefited me when I work in front of the camera.
And you've also had so much success already in your young career. When you look back, is there a particular moment that stands out to you?
That's a hard question because I feel like every time it's like a new experience and a new milestone for me. But I guess this year, I guess I would say it would be working on Digstown. It's the longest that I've been away from home to work on a project, and I did a lot of flying and living in hotel rooms, and it's not something I had experienced before when it comes to work. So it taught me a lot about how much self-care is involved when
Hmm.
you're really fully immersed in a project, and that it's something I should prioritize.
You also made your return to Kung Fu this season. How early on did the writers kind of clue you in that they were planning on bringing you back?
They let me know. I think it was the second to last time I was there. I worked on an episode with the writer Melissa Rundle. I think it was season 2, episode 10. And that what after that day, she was like, I want to work with you. Like, I need to bring you back in for season 3. And she was like telling me all these ideas she had for my character and like what the writers room had for me. So um, I had a good feeling I was coming back.
One of the great things about television as a medium is that you get the opportunity to see different sides of each character and them grow over time. While your character originally was very mission driven, there's a moment where she breaks down her walls at the end of season 2 with Daniel's passing. How much fun is it for you as an actress to show all those different shades? And what was it like getting to collaborate with Olivia and Eddie as you show that evolution?
Yeah, it's really fun to play a rival. I feel like it's a lot of
Yeah.
room that you get to play, and there's a lot of things that Yuen does that I wouldn't necessarily do in my life, like cast a spell in a jungle or like a forest in Gaelic. So I had the opportunity to experience that and really feel like a kung fu witch in the forest with like all the smog and the mist. Um, and it was a really cool experience to do that and to collaborate with Olivia and Eddie. They're so lovely. They're so wonderful, amazing, giving actors. And I've actually not worked with an, another Asian actor before, I don't think,
Mm,
in terms of being my scene partner.
yeah.
But that aside, they're just so wonderful. So yeah, it was great.
Exactly this next question, but this industry has made really slow progress in terms of greater representation and visibility on screen. And Kung Fu is a huge step forward. What has it meant for you to be a part of a project like this? Why do you think it's taken the industry so long to get here?
It means a lot to me to have been able to be on a show like this. It is a predominantly Asian cast, and they do make an effort to cast all different types of Asian
Yeah.
people. And I remember them talking about that when I was on set, that they want to make sure they have diversity even within the Asian community. So I felt very fortunate to be a part of a show like that. And I think it just takes time for change, and people are normalized to something like having non-Asian people play Asian characters, or people are normalized to that, and they think that that's okay because they're used to it. And I think 2020 did change a lot. Well, I know this show came out before, this show was in the works before that. um, I think social media makes a big difference too. People are much more vocal. You can see what the masses want in a way. It becomes a bit more transparent with how people feel about shows, and I think that's really made a change.
Speaking of social media, the Kung Fu fan base is like no other. Have you been able to kind of see their reactions to your characters on social media? What has that experience been like for you?
It was really cool. I have some fans like message me and they follow the show very closely. And now they're following, they're reading my articles and they really take the time to do that. And the show has the best fans. They
Yeah.
really care. They're on Twitter. They're like attached to the characters in a way. And they they are the reason why the show is the way it is, and why it's such an honor to be on that show. It's all these fans, I think, can see themselves reflected on the screen.
Definitely. Mentorship plays such a big role in Kung Fu. Who were the people in your life who shaped the storyteller that you are today?
Oh wow, what a great question. um I would have to say it begins with my parents, because they tell me a lot of stories about what it's like growing up in Taiwan and like what Taiwanese people do, and I'm just like, sometimes they can be such opposing thing, like distinctly opposing ideas and norms, and I'm just like, I don't, and then I've just had to pick and choose what works for me. So I'd say first and foremost my parents, indirectly. It's not something that they you know had intentions of. They were wanting me to understand more about my past. So I would say that in terms of storytelling. And then, oh, I don't know, man. I read a lot about like philosophy. So I
Hmm.
feel like Jung has played a big part. The philosopher or psychologist, the psychologist Jung, Carl's Jung, Carl Jung. Um, because he talks a lot about how stories connect people together. And I think after I discovered him, made me realize that this is important work. Whereas before that, I was like, this is something I want to do and I feel inclination to. And then after reading his work, I'm like, oh, this is important.
You were saying earlier that your parents were a little bit hesitant to you kind of entering the entertainment industry. And given how much success that you've had, have they kind of had a change of heart? What has it been like getting to share all these different projects with them?
Yeah. They're they're happy for me now. And it feels really good because initially there was a bit of tension when it came to, my career and what I was going to do with my life and how I was going to make this work. And for them, they just have never seen examples of that in their own life. So I can see why for them it just seems something that's so out of reach. And even for myself, I didn't grow up knowing anybody in the entertainment industry. So it was also very out of reach for me. Um, and now that they see that I'm still very persistent at it, they've accepted it and they're supportive because there's really no other option.
In the world of kung fu, you never know when somebody's going to pop up again. Have there been any other early conversations about potentially bringing your character again, either in season 3 or if we're lucky enough to get a season 4 in season 4?
Well, I am back in season 3, and I don't really get to know. I find out, as the show's written, and I think that's what happens with the rest of the cast as well. So hopefully, yeah, I would love to see more of Yuan, and whether she wants to work with Nikki and Henry, or if she's gonna continue making things difficult for them.
And then outside of this project, what's next for you? Where else can fans see you?
Well, I'm on a show called Digstown. It's on CBC in Canada, and I'm going to be working on a feature film called Stealing McLeod. It's based off of the life of John McAfee, and that's going to be filming in Spain next year. So hopefully that comes out shortly after that.
Very cool. I got one final question for you. You're such a dynamic storyteller. As you look ahead to the next 5 to 10 years, is there a dream role or story that you would love to bring to life, either as an actor, a writer, producer, or a director?
Uh, there's so many things I want to do, but off the top of my head, what just came to me as you asked me that question is about I would love to be in a film or TV show about the Asian community in Mississippi. It was something that I didn't realize that there is a big Asian community in Mississippi, and they owned a lot of grocery stores, and they basically were the people that sold groceries to both white and black people because there was such segregation between white and black people in Mississippi, and Asian people were kind of the people in between, so they could service both communities. And there's a story about a grocery store owner whose daughters were going to school, and he wanted to send them to, there were only black and white schools, so he lived in the, his grocery store was in the white part of the neighborhood, so he wanted to go send his kids to a white school, and they're like, well, you can't be here, you're not white. And they're like, well, we're not black either. And so he had to start his own school, and that story was the catalyst for segregation to end between black and white people, and I don't think that
Mm.
that's well known.